So we did it. Back in January of 2024, my wife and I retired at 60 and 61. Now, my career was 24 years working inside a refinery, pretty much as a blue-collar worker, and my wife was a caregiver. So we had decided at about the age of 50 that we were going to try to retire at 59 and a half after a couple of pretty scary health things. And it all worked out. We got everything resolved. There were a couple of surgeries. And once we got through all that, we decided, hey, we're going to go ahead and start prepping for retirement. I built my big workshop. You know, we went ahead, we bought a motorhome, we bought a Jeep to tow behind the motorhome, and we did all this in our 50s preparing for the retirement years so that we didn't have to use our fixed income to go ahead and make those purchases. Now, after doing several, I call them retirement test drives, which basically is accumulating a bunch of my vacation and taking about 3 weeks off and hitting the road in the RV, I would suggest, if that's the type of life that you want to have, the RV life, that you go ahead and do those test drives. Even if you have to go out and rent one of those motorhomes, you've seen them going down the road all the time, because it does take a certain amount of mechanical aptitude to be an RVer. You know, you gotta carry some tools with you. You got to be ready to adapt. And speaking of adapters, the cord and adapters that go along with hooking up an RV can be kind of complex. But anyway, check out the RV life before you make that big investment. Now, my wife and I pretty much already had an idea of what that life was like and that we would really enjoy it, and we did. So as we got into our mid-50s, we actually built a little better than a rough financial plan to figure out what we needed. And it became apparent that, you know, we had to lower our spending, because in our younger years, although we were investing in a retirement plan, we had a bad experience with a company called Enron that I worked for. So really, we didn't get started on retirement until I was about 38. Long story short, when we got to be about 56, we looked at it and we said, we've got to lower our expenses. So we got very aggressive in paying things off. You know, we got our mortgage paid off, we got our vehicles paid off, and tried to do as much as we could to get that monthly spending down. So just when we thought we had our plan all set and we were ready to go, we had an unexpected life event. Yep, it happens. Life happens, right? We had to take care of a 3.5-year-old niece of my wife's, and we had her for 2 years. So that kind of put things on delay, not only financially, but it was pretty hard on my wife and I, taking care of a young child and getting back into that mode of, you know, young child care. So that actually, it didn't really delay us much, but when it came right down to it, and we talked to our financial guy again, he said, well, you're still a little bit high. Is there any way you could pay that Jeep off? And it took about a year, but we got that Jeep paid off. And then I had a bonus coming up. So long story short, I did extend my retirement about 1.5 years, and I pulled the trigger at 61 years old. So after working 42 years in maintenance and construction, I gotta say, for me, the most enjoyable part about my early retirement is getting to sleep in, you know, and not being under stress. I really did not recognize how much stress I was under on a daily basis. So one thing that really surprised me was I was one of those people who I was always, you know, waiting for the weekend, right? Waiting for Friday because I had this fishing trip planned, or, you know, things that I wanted to get done around the house. Well, now in retirement, I actually don't like the weekends as much because it's always crowded. You got traffic, the stores are crowded, you got to make tea times to go play golf. Well, when you're retired, the weekdays are yours. They are yours. You own the store, you own the roads. And you know what? My local golf course, they're not that busy on weekdays. I can just go up and play about any time I want to. So that piece has been really great, but it was really surprising because when Friday evening comes now, I go, well, I guess I'll go ahead and do my honeydews on Saturday and Sunday, and then I'll play Monday through Friday. So something that I had tried to stay up with when I was working was exercise. And you know, in your 30s and 40s, you get enough exercise just, you know, being around the house, mowing the lawn, and you're very active doing things. But when you get a little bit older and the kids are out of the house and you're not doing all that, it makes it kind of tough. But I was, you know, I would get on the treadmill probably 3-4 times a week. But now that I'm retired, I've got a regular routine. And part of that routine is after I get up, before I eat breakfast, I either walk a mile on the treadmill or I go ahead and eat my breakfast, and then I go play 9 holes of golf where I use a push cart. And that's how I'm pretty much getting most of my exercise. Now, I do need to work into a stretching routine, but that's a little bit in the future. Another thing that's been really nice for us is now we have all the time to make all the grandkids events. You know, the soccer games, the plays, the dancing, all that type of stuff. And that's been really refreshing because it's not something you got to come home from work, you know, eat real fast, and then it's off to the soccer games or off to the baseball games. Or on Saturday, you got dance recitals on, you know, at 1 o'clock and having to hustle around because you got all the time in the world now. So we're getting to go to a lot of different things with our grandkids. And as a matter of fact, I took my daughter down to about a 500-mile trip. Her husband couldn't make the trip, and it was a state wrestling tournament, and one of her boys had gotten invited down there. So I was able to go ahead and take her down there. So for me, probably when the retirement dream became a reality was when I looked across the table at my financial advisor, and he looked at the papers, and he looked up, and he smiled, and he said, "We're there." He said, "You're good to go anytime you want to go." He said, "I don't think working an extra year is going to benefit you much. So, you know, if this is what you're wanting to do," he said, "let's go ahead and move forward with it." So I think to summarize my retirement so far in one word, freedom. Yes, freedom is wonderful. You know, we don't really have any goals set for retirement right now. It's pretty much just planning our vacations and planning what we're doing for our kids and around our kids, and just having a heck of a time, taking different trips and trying to help people out along the way. And now that I am into retirement, things have changed a little bit, because there for about a year and a half, my interest was pretty much retirement planning, getting everything ready, making sure I had enough money. Well, you can't never make sure, but making sure that I had the amount of money I thought I needed, and you know, that my property was in good shape and that we were ready to go. Well, now my interest is getting my golf swing in good shape, and that is a challenge. So hey, if you got any good golf tips, leave them down in the comments, please. I need them desperately. My brother-in-law is kicking my butt, one of my sons is kicking my butt, and I've got to get on top of this golf game and get this thing straightened out.